Welcome to the Monday Method. I'm your host, Liz Mayer, life, career, and business coach, and I am obsessed with helping you create the life you love so you stop living for the weekends and start loving your Mondays. This show is dedicated to you women who do it all, from building careers to building families to becoming the version of yourself you love. This show provides you with the tools to get you off the hamster wheel of burnout so you can give what matters in your life the best of you, not the rest of you. Are you ready to create a life so good you look forward to Mondays? Then let's go. Well, hello, and welcome to today's show. Today, I'm going to be tackling one of the sneakiest confidence killers out there, and it's called rumination. And if you don't really know exactly what rumination is, let me just describe it to you. It's that mental loop where you obsess over something maybe awkward you said in a meeting, and it's not something that happened a moment ago. It happened like months ago, or maybe years ago, or maybe it's an instance where you didn't speak up or you didn't say what you wanted to say. And now, because of that instance, you are spiraling into self-doubt. If this sounds familiar to you, you are not alone. And in this episode, I'm going to break down what rumination really is and how it's different from healthy reflection. I'm going to also cover why high-achieving women tend to spiral more than men do. I'm going to even share a very embarrassing story of mine that lived rent-free in my head for way too long. And most importantly, I'm going to share how to get out of your head and step into your power. And if you've ever found yourself replaying conversations, doubting the voice that you have, that powerful voice that you have access to, or even just shrinking back after a cringe moment, then this episode is for you. And obviously stick around because I'm also sharing how we can work together inside my group coaching program that helps professionals like you stop shrinking and start showing up like the leader you already are. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the real villain in the room, okay? So let's face it. Corporate life, professional settings can actually feel like a pressure cooker. There's high stakes, there's tight deadlines, and oftentimes there could even be more drama than, that reality TV show you're watching. And while it might be tempting to blame the guy who interrupts you in every meeting, Robert, the real villain might be actually a lot closer to home. The real villain might be rumination. So as I said, rumination is that endless internal replay of what you said, maybe what you should have said, or what you wish you didn't say. It's like a blooper reel, except instead of laughing, you shrink. And if you're a high-achieving woman, you might be turning those bloopers into a full-blown identity crisis. I've been there. Do you want a story? Buckle up. Okay, story time. This is actually pretty embarrassing. I was 24. I was fresh in my career working at an agency, and I was eager, I was anxious, and I actually just really wanted to be liked. I wanted to belong, and I wanted to also just appear cool. So we were in a brainstorm session for an adult diaper brand. And the room was tense. It was one of those projects that had a very tight deadline. And it was also one of those projects that had pretty high stakes. And I was in account service at the time, and I was responsible for helping to support the brainstorm. And as a typical extrovert, I don't like awkward silences. And no one was really talking. And everyone was, I don't know if they were tired or they were nervous, but there was a lack of engagement. And so I tried to lighten the room. And I said something to the effect of, how about, oops, I crapped my pants? Okay, so this is a clear throwback joke to that ridiculous SNL skit from the 1900s. There were crickets. I turned beet red. I think I actually disassociated for the rest of the meeting. I said nothing. I just took notes. They were immaculate notes. And what's wild is nobody mentioned it to me. I mean, my boss didn't say anything. My coworkers didn't say anything. If anything, actually, that awkward comment that I made actually started people talking and having a responsible, effective conversation. But that doesn't matter because for months, I remembered it. Actually, years. Even just telling you that story brings incredible cringe factors. And every time I replayed that story for years, I would say things to myself like, you're so unprofessional. You'll never be taken seriously. I would say things like, you don't belong here, or you should just keep quiet. That, my friend, is rumination. And I gave that one awkward moment way more power than it deserved. And maybe you're doing the same thing with something way less offensive and way less insane. So, what rumination is and what rumination is not. Let's start with what it's not. Rumination is not reflection. Okay? It's just not. Think about reflection as a mature cousin that's not inbred of rumination. Reflection is curious. It leads to insight and it's helpful. Rumination is obsessive. It leads to paralysis and it is critical, typically of you, but it can also be critical of others. And rumination doesn't leave room for learning. It's constantly focusing on the fact that it's telling you that you're broken. And it sounds like, did I come across too aggressively? Another example of rumination is, well, they said this, but did they really mean it? Or, I can't believe I said that. What if I never get promoted because of that one thing I said? Or, I'm such an idiot because I missed that. And it's not something that you move on from. You keep revisiting rumination. Like that date that, or that ex-boyfriend that you keep going back to, that it's just over. And the thing with rumination is it's exhausting. But the other thing that's important is women are especially prone to it. So let's talk about why women ruminate more than men. Research shows women are more likely to internalize blame and dwell on it. And it's not because women are weak. It's because the expectations we have on ourselves and quite candidly, just in general, can be ridiculous at times. And we're also navigating a lot of oppositional forces. So concepts like you have to be competent, but you also have to be likable. You have to be confident, but be careful not to come across as intimidating. You have to be assertive, but not too assertive. You have to speak up, but don't talk more than you're supposed to. You have to be direct, but always make sure that you're kind and you're nurturing. Okay. It kind of reminds me of that whole monologue in the Barbie movie that is about all of the things that we're supposed to be as women. And it really hits home and causes the rumination actions and behaviors to take place. And if you throw that in with imposter syndrome, workplace microaggressions, or being the only woman in the room, and you have got, my friend, a perfect storm of self-doubt. The difference is while women are ruminating, many men are actually conditioned to externalize the blame. So they mess up and they'll say, that assignment didn't make sense. Or that client was being really difficult. They're more likely to acknowledge it as the issue is external and then they are going to move on. However, when we as women mess up, we might spiral into really internalizing the blame. And instead of saying that outside of me is an issue, we instead are saying to ourselves, I am the problem. And saying to yourself constantly that you are the problem has a very expensive cost. Here's what rumination is stealing from you. It's stealing your confidence because you're too busy second guessing yourself to show up. It's stealing your creativity because let's face it, you're never going to get fresh ideas, your best thinking when you're in a state of fear. It's going to cost you connections. If you're stuck in your head, you're not going to be present in the room. You're not going to be able to pick up on the cues that other people could be giving you with their nonverbal and verbal signals. And then obviously, it's costing you a ton of energy. Ruminating is so mentally draining. It is literally next level exhausting because you are putting your emotions into this negative state. And here's the other thing is if you are ruminating often and you're a chronic ruminator on all things, it can start to lead you into coping mechanisms that don't serve you. So if you're constantly telling yourself that you messed up and that you're the problem, it's oftentimes very common to not want to live in that thinking space. And that's why oftentimes I'll work with clients who have a very negative thought pattern and then they can't get away from that thinking. And then they numb out with poor coping mechanisms. So they numb out that internal voice with food and snacking, or they numb out that internal voice with alcohol or endless online shopping or scrolling. So the reason that it's important for you to understand this is that rumination is literally creating hell in your mind, and you deserve better. But here's the other important thing. You can actually break the cycle. So how do you actually stop the spiral? So here's a few tips that work. Number one, I want you to recognize the patterns. If you're feeling anxious or emotionally wiped out, your brain likely is looping, and that's exhausting. So oftentimes just journaling and being with those thoughts and physically getting them out on paper can help you create awareness and then also expose those patterns that you're seeing so you can call them out and you can just be aware. And when I say call them out, I don't mean calling yourself out. Oh, here I am. I'm a piece of crap because I'm ruminating. Just be aware. Notice it, right? That's where this like whole yogic and meditative philosophy comes in handy because you're observing yourself in that rumination activity. So journaling is my favorite tool for that. The second thing you want to do is when you realize you are in the rumination practice is to ultimately give yourself a dose of self-compassion. Stop overemphasizing your mistakes. You're human, you're learning, and try to treat yourself like you would your kid or your friend, not a punching bag. So if you made a mistake, or if something didn't go the way that you wanted it to, instead of using that as an opportunity to get very critical on yourself, use it as an opportunity to acknowledge what didn't go the way you wanted it to, but then also practice self compassion. Maybe that meeting didn't go well, but I'm learning. The individual didn't agree with me, but at least I spoke up. Things like that where you're acknowledging your effort, acknowledging your intention, while also acknowledging that maybe it didn't go as well as you wanted it to go, actually starts to create more of an objective state and enables you to distance yourself a bit better from the issue while also maintaining some neutrality or at least some sense of self-compassion for the situation. Another thing you can do is set boundaries. Set boundaries, set boundaries, set boundaries. So, setting boundaries actually helps you create distance between you and work, okay? That moment that you're ruminating about doesn't get the chance to follow you into dinner with your family or friends. It doesn't get to take over you having a nice date night with your partner. It doesn't get to suck the air out of the room. And if you've ever listened to the episode that I did on boundaries a while back, and I suggest you should if you haven't, boundaries are going to ultimately put you in a place of empowerment because you're responsible for creating them and you're responsible for upholding them. So, one of the ways that I set boundaries for myself, and I work with this on my clients, in particular, the clients that are chronic ruminators, is we set a time for them to actively get into the rumination mode. Okay. Just bear with me. So instead of saying, oh, I'm not going to think like that, I'm not going to think like that, I'm not going to think like that, we choose a time during the week or during the day where we say, you know what, I'll worry about that, or I'll ruminate about that, or I'll obsess over that Wednesday. Wednesday at 9 is when I will think about that. And I know that might sound like you're passing things off, but what it's actually enabling you to do is compartmentalize the issue and saying, I am going to solve for that. I'm going to spend time with that. I'm going to acknowledge that issue at this time on this day. And by doing that, you feel in the short term a sense of relief because you have a solution. And it enables you to say, we're moving on to the next thing that I need to do, whether that's something personally or something professionally that you need to get to so rumination doesn't stand in your way. I actually would advocate for you to put a little block of time on your calendar that enables you to do that. I've talked about bookmarks or bookends within the day in another podcast episode that you can reference. But really having that time for rumination helps you know that you're handling the issue without just avoiding it entirely. And then go to that time and really spend time with the issue and get your head right and start to get into that state of self-compassion. The next thing that you can do in that block of time, that rumination time, is really to shift into problem solving mode. So, while I am all about connecting with your emotions and being aware of your emotions, what I don't want you to do is indulge in them. And you're indulging in emotions and thoughts that are not serving you if you're not moving forward. So instead of obsessing, why did I say that? What's wrong with me? Oh gosh, what the hell's going on? Instead, ask yourself, what do I want to do next? Very simple. What do I want to do next? Another question you can ask yourself is, what am I making this mean? In my example, I said something unprofessional and inappropriate in a meeting. What am I making this mean? In that instance, I was making it mean that I was horrible, I was terrible, I was unprofessional. And sure, I might not have said the right thing, but none of those things are entirely true about me 100% of the time. Also, if I would have asked myself the question, what do I want to do next? I probably would have clearly answered nothing. Show up the next time and maybe don't have a joke like that. So, my point here is when you shift into problem solving mode, reflection and productive reflection is going to lead you to action versus more rumination is only going to lead to self sabotage. Always choose action. A common thing that I see with a lot of my clients is they'll say things like, I just need to think about it more. I just need to think through this. And while I am all for you making sure that you are processing your thoughts and being aware of your emotions, be very cautious that you're not overthinking the issue. Rumination, in and of itself, is a version of overthinking. And so, what you don't want to do is continue the wheel, get to a point where you can move on with acting in accordance to the results that you want to have. And listen, if you're ready to stop overthinking and start owning the room, I want to personally invite you to join me inside my latest group coaching program. It's for high achievers who are tired of shrinking, who are stuck in self-doubt, who are constantly wondering if they're too much or not enough, and ultimately not getting where they want to be. Inside this program, you're going to learn how to speak with confidence, advocate for yourself, even in the cringiest of situations, and ultimately turn your self-doubt into self-leadership. For more on this program, go to lizmayercoaching.com, and you'll also find a plethora of free trainings on my website that you can access for free to help you stop playing small and start commanding the damn room. So, in closing, rumination may be common, but it doesn't have to be a life sentence. You don't have to carry every awkward moment, every misstep, or every overanalyzed email like a backpack full of bricks. You are allowed to be imperfect. You are also imperfect and still very powerful. And you're absolutely allowed to stop rehearsing your bloopers and start owning your brilliance. So until next time, friend, ditch the mental noise and keep showing up like the badass that you are. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon.